Hello there, Drew Handish of Whiskey Lore, and it is time for another whiskey tasting. And today, the black tie signifies we are doing a smoky whiskey. We are going for the BenRiach, the Smoky 10-year-old. If you've had Curiositas, this is nothing like it. And so we're going to jump in and do a little tasting on this, tell you a little bit about the distillery. But before we jump in, I want to say a big thank you to Fernando Rivera, who is a longtime supporter of Whiskey Lore. He's a member of the Whiskey Lore Society. He's a Scotch fan, and just want to send out a huge thank you for all your support. We've turned into good friends, chatting back and forth during some of our live feeds. We've had a chance to kind of chat back and forth and good stuff. So thank you so much for being a part of the channel. And let's see, when we talk about BenRiach, the way I really kind of fell into buying this bottle, which I recently bought, was because of the interview with Rory Glasgow. And if you want to learn all about BenRiach, you can watch that interview here on YouTube. But he talked a lot about their history and the fact that their founder in 1898, John Duff, actually used to be the distillery manager for Glendronach before he came over to BenRiach. BenRiach opened right when the Pattison crash happened and the Scotch whiskey industry went into a depression. A lot of the distilleries started getting bought up. The way BenRiach survived was, rather than making whiskey, they were using their malting floors. And they were supplying Longmorn, which was a distillery that was right down the road from them, owned by John Duff also. And so they would use this train called Puggy that would go back and forth between these two distilleries. And so for the longest time, it was just known for its malting floor. But they started making whiskey again, and it would be used in blends for a while. And it really wouldn't be until Billy Walker, who that name will be familiar if you've watched my video on Glenglassaugh. Billy Walker came in, purchased the distillery, and then helped bring it back to life, and then sold it to Brown-Forman. So now that Brown-Forman owns it, Dr. Rachel Berry is in charge, and she's got a great background in terms of the whiskeys that she's had influence over, from Ardbeg and Glenmorangie, and now with Glenglassaugh, Glendronach, and BenRiach. So I've sensed that she's kind of experimenting a little bit with BenRiach, that Glendronach kind of has its thing. It is a sherry bomb whiskey. Glenglassaugh are these heavy, rich whiskeys, and that with BenRiach, she's kind of looking for something and trying to figure out what the personality of this distillery is. And so they have rebranded. They had the Curiositas. I got to tell you that the Curiositas took me some getting used to. I had a friend of mine, he bought it, he let me taste it, and I thought, well, that's interesting, but it's like a heathery smoke. There's no saltiness to it, there's no iodine to it. And so it took a little getting used to. But I got used to it enough that I actually traded him for another whiskey, and then ended up getting a bottle of Curiositas and finished the bottle, and it was fine. By the time I was done with the bottle, I was like, yeah, it was fine. I don't know if I'd buy another one, but it was good. Then I did the interview with Rory Glasgow. He introduced the fact that they now have this set of 4 different whiskeys. They have the original, which is a 10-year-old, the original 12-year-old, a 10-year-old Smoky 10, and then a Smoky 12, which is the 12-year-old. What I found for my palate is that I actually liked the younger expression of the smoky whiskey and the older expression of the original, the 12-year. And so when it came to deciding which one I was going to buy a bottle of, I decided to go with the Smoky 10 because I'm a big fan of smoky whiskeys. So, note the black tie. So this one is really light on the nose in terms of picking up scents. It's very subtle. There is smoke there. There may be a little bit of that sort of apple pear that you would expect out of a Speyside whiskey. Now, the interesting thing about the malting floor, by the way, just to get back to that story before I dive into this, is that now BenRiach is following on that tradition, and they still have their malting floor. A lot of these distilleries, you'll see the pagoda, which signifies that they have a malting floor, but those are over the visitor center or something like that. They've used that space for something else. There are just a handful of distilleries now. Springbank, Beaumont, Kilchoman, Lefroy, Balvenie, those all have malting floors. And actually, fun, if you go to Beaumont, you can actually get out there and scoop it around, which is kind of fun. But with BenRiach, what they've done is now just part of the year, around April, they will open up the malting floor and actually do floor malting. So if you're ever in Scotland in April, around the time of the festivals, that is the time when you may get a chance to see their malting floors. Okay, there's a little grain in there too. I'm getting just a little bit of that malty character in there as well. There's honey, pear, some of that grain. The smoke is the star of the show. It's not aggressive. It's not something you have to get used to. It's really nicely blended in there. And then a really nice, juicy kind of finish. If the rum has any impact on this whiskey, I think it's on the finish. I do sort of sense, and I need to drink more rum to note what a rum flavor is, but I get sort of that rum cask taste on the finish of this whiskey. It just kind of rolls on in. There's actually a little mint in this as well, and then the grain comes in. A little baking spice in there as well. And then you pull it back to your nose and you just get the nice grainy smoke comes through. Again, more of a foresty smoke rather than being a briny, medicinal, seaweedy kind of a smoke or an overly ashy smoke. It's really pleasant. This is kind of where you could step into drinking smoky whiskeys before you go to the West Coast and really dive in full force into... because it still has a lot of those nice Speyside characters to it. I'm now on the nose, I'm starting to pull a little of that apple in a little bit more. So, hope you guys enjoyed this. Make sure to like and subscribe, and more of these videos are going to be coming your way. I'll be talking about rye, Scotch, bourbon, American single malt. We'll go into, also, I have lots of whiskey in my cabinets, so lots of different whiskeys for us to talk about. So, leave comments below if you like the video, or if you have comments about this particular whiskey, if you've tried it before, or other whiskeys that I've mentioned in this episode that you might want to talk about or have me taste at some point. And until next time, cheers and Slán Java.